My name is not important right now. What matters is what he said. We were standing in court. The room smelled like old paper and cold air. People sat quietly behind us. The judge looked tired. My hands were shaking, but I stood straight. Then my husband leaned forward, looked at me, and smiled. "I'll take everything from you," he said. Not quietly. Not kindly. He said it so everyone could hear. The room went silent. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. My knees almost gave way. This was the man I had shared a bed with. The man I cooked for. The man I trusted with my life. And now, in front of the judge, he wanted to destroy me. Before I go any further, let me ask you something. If the person you loved most looked at you in court and promised to leave you with nothing, what would you do? If you enjoy emotional and powerful stories like this, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss what happens next. Also, tell me in the comments where you are watching from. I want to know who is here with me. Now listen carefully. The judge raised an eyebrow. My lawyer touched my arm gently. People whispered behind me. But my husband was confident. Too confident. He believed he had already won. "You'll leave this marriage with nothing," he continued. "The house, the money, the business, everything is mine." He said it like a promise. I looked at him and saw something I had never seen before. Not anger. Not pain. Greed. The judge cleared his throat and asked him to calm down. But the damage was already done. Those words cut deep. I wanted to cry. I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Because while he was busy threatening me, he had no idea what he was really standing on. The judge asked us to sit. The hearing continued, but I barely heard anything else. My mind went back in time. Back to the beginning. Back to the small signs I ignored. Back to the nights I stayed up balancing bills while he slept peacefully. Back to the papers he asked me to sign without reading. Back to the business accounts I managed, just to help him. I thought I was being a good wife. I didn't know I was building my own shield. The judge finally spoke again. "This case will continue," he said. "Both parties will submit full financial records." My husband smiled even wider. He thought this would finish me. As we walked out of the courtroom, he leaned close to my ear and whispered, "You should have stayed quiet." I looked at him then. Really looked. And for the first time, I realized something very important. The man who was trying to take everything from me didn't actually know where everything was. That night, I went home alone. I sat on my bed in the dark and opened a folder I had not touched in years. Inside were documents, records, and details he never bothered to learn. And as I turned the pages, my fear slowly changed into something else. Hope. Because the next court date was coming. And what he didn't know yet was that his threat would become the beginning of his worst nightmare. That night, I did not sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed with the folder open on my lap. Papers were spread around me like pieces of a life I finally understood. My hands shook as I touched them, not from fear, but from memory. These were the things he never cared to look at. For years, my husband liked to say, "You're better with details." So I handled them. The bills. The accounts. The business records. The savings plans. He called it help. I called it marriage. Every month, I made sure things were paid. Every year, I organized our taxes. Every time a problem came up, I fixed it quietly so he wouldn't worry. He liked that. He liked feeling powerful without doing the work. I thought that was love. Now I knew better. I picked up one document and read it again. It showed the business accounts, accounts that everyone thought were his. Accounts with his name on the front page. But deeper inside the paperwork, something else appeared. My name. My signature. My authority. I swallowed hard. Years ago, when the business was struggling, he came home angry and scared. If this fails, We lose everything, he said. I remember holding his hand and saying, "We won't." That was the night he asked me to step in, just temporarily. "Just help me sign a few things," he said. "It's only for now." I trusted him. I didn't know that temporary would last years. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee I didn't drink. I sat at the kitchen table and made a list. Everything he thought he owned. Everything I actually controlled. Everything the court would soon ask about. The list was longer than I expected. The house mortgage. I co-signed and paid most of it. The business loan. In my name. The savings account. I opened it. The emergency fund. My paycheck built it. I felt sick. Not because I was weak, but because I had been strong for the wrong person. Later that day, my lawyer called. "He's asking for full ownership of everything," she said carefully. "House, business, savings." I laughed softly. "Of course he is. He claims you contributed very little," she added. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. "Tell him to submit his records," I said. There was a pause. "Are you sure?" "Yes," I replied. "Very sure." That afternoon, my husband sent me a message. "You're dragging this out. Just sign and move on." I stared at the screen. Then another message came. "You know you can't win this." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my laptop and began organizing files. Dates. Amounts. Proof. Everything he ignored. As I worked, memories came back. The nights I stayed up late balancing numbers while he slept. The weekends I skipped rest to fix business problems. The vacations we couldn't afford, while money quietly moved where he never noticed. By evening, I had something powerful. Clarity. The next court date arrived faster than I expected. We sat on opposite sides again. He looked relaxed, confident, almost bored. The judge asked for updates. My husband's lawyer stood up first. "My client maintains that the business and assets were managed by him alone," he said. His wife was not deeply involved. I felt my chest tighten. Then my lawyer stood. "Your Honor," she said, "we request a full financial disclosure, including bank access logs and account authority records." My husband shifted in his seat. The judge nodded. "Granted." For the first time, his smile faded. Outside the courtroom, he caught up to me. "What are you doing?" he snapped. I looked at him calmly. "Telling the truth." "You're making a mistake," he said through clenched teeth. "You think the judge will care about your little paperwork?" I met his eyes. "I think the judge will care who actually paid for your life." His face hardened. "This isn't over," he said. "I know," I replied. That night, another message arrived. "I'll take everything from you. Watch me." I turned off my phone and closed my laptop. Because now I understood something very clearly. He wasn't fighting for survival. He was fighting to hide something. And the deeper the court looked, the closer we were getting to the one thing he feared most. The truth. The next court date came faster than I expected. That morning, I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Not fixing my hair. Not checking my clothes. Just looking at myself. I barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked tired, but strong. Quiet, but alert. This was no longer just a divorce. This was a battle over truth. When we entered the courtroom, my husband walked in like a king. His shoulders were back. His head was high. He even smiled at a few people sitting behind him. He believed this was already over. The judge took his seat and asked for updates. My husband's lawyer stood confidently. "Your Honor," he began, "my client maintains that his wife did not play a meaningful role in the financial structure of the marriage or the business. Any involvement was minor and supportive at best." Supportive. That word burned. My husband nodded along, calm and sure. The judge turned to my lawyer. Your response. My lawyer stood slowly. She did not rush. She did not raise her voice. Your Honor, she said, we have submitted preliminary documents that suggest otherwise. She handed papers to the clerk. The judge reviewed them quietly. What are these? The judge asked. Account access records, my lawyer replied, showing who logged in, who authorized transactions, and who carried legal responsibility. My husband shifted in his chair. Just slightly. The judge looked up. And these records show? They show that the wife had primary access and responsibility over several accounts tied to the business and household. My husband laughed out loud. That proves nothing, he said quickly. She just helped sometimes. The judge looked at him sharply. Sir, you will speak when addressed. Silence followed. My lawyer continued. We also request a deeper audit of the business finances over the past 5 years. My husband's lawyer stood up immediately. That is unnecessary, he argued. This is a divorce, not a criminal investigation. The judge leaned back. That depends, the judge said slowly, on what the audit reveals. For the first time, I saw fear flash across my husband's face. Just for a second. After court, he cornered me near the exit. You're trying to embarrass me, he said angrily. I kept my voice low. I'm trying to protect myself. You always did this, he snapped. You hide behind details and paperwork. I looked at him carefully. No, I said. I carried you. He scoffed. Without me, you're nothing. That hurt. But it also made something very clear. He still believed I needed him. That belief was his biggest mistake. That evening, I received an email from my lawyer. The judge has ordered full financial disclosure. All accounts. All transactions. All years. My heart pounded. This was it. The digging had officially begun. I spent the next few days gathering everything. Old files. Backup drives. Emails. Notes I kept just to remember passwords and deadlines. As I organized them, patterns began to appear. Transfers that didn't make sense. Expenses labeled business that were not business at all. Money moving quietly, carefully, like someone didn't want it noticed. And then I saw it. A small account. Not large. Not obvious. But consistent. Money moved into it regularly. Money I never approved. Money I never used. The account was in his name. But it was funded through pathways I controlled. My chest tightened. He hadn't just taken credit. He had been siphoning. That night, I barely slept. The next morning, I forwarded the discovery to my lawyer. Her reply came quickly. This is important. Do not confront him. Let the court see this first. But my husband didn't wait. He showed up at my door that evening. You think you're smart, he said the moment I opened it. You think you've trapped me. I stood still. Why are you here? Because you're going to sign the settlement, he said. Now. I shook my head. No. His smile vanished. You don't know what you're playing with, he warned. If this goes any further, things get ugly. I met his eyes. They already are. He leaned in close and whispered something that made my blood run cold. If I go down, I'll make sure you go down with me. Then he walked away. I closed the door slowly, my heart racing. Because now I understood. This was no longer about money or pride. It was about exposure. And the closer the court got to the truth, the more desperate he would become. The next hearing would decide everything. And he was about to make a move that would turn his confidence into panic. After the night he showed up at my door, I locked every window. Not because I was scared of him hurting me, but because I finally understood how far he was willing to go to protect himself. 4 days, I heard nothing. No messages. No calls. No threats. That silence felt wrong. People who feel safe don't go quiet like that. People who are hiding something do. The next court date arrived on a gray morning. The sky looked heavy, like it knew something bad was about to fall. When we entered the courtroom, I noticed something different. My husband didn't look confident anymore. He still wore a nice suit, but it sat wrong on him. He kept rubbing his hands together. His eyes darted around the room instead of resting proudly on the judge like before. The confidence was cracking. The judge called the case. Today, the judge said, we will review the initial findings from the financial audit. My heart pounded. My husband's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, we believe this audit is unnecessary and invasive. The judge looked unimpressed. You had no issue asking for everything your wife owned. That sentence landed hard. A quiet murmur spread through the room. The court-appointed accountant was called to speak. She was calm, clear, precise. After reviewing the financial records, she began, we found several inconsistencies. My husband shifted in his seat. Inconsistencies? The judge asked. Yes, she replied. Funds labeled as business expenses that were transferred to personal accounts. My husband's lawyer jumped up. Objection, those were reimbursements. The accountant nodded politely. There is no documentation supporting that. Silence. She continued. There is also an account that was not disclosed in the initial filings. My breath caught. The judge leaned forward. Explain. This account received regular deposits over several years, the accountant said. The funds originated from joint-controlled pathways, but the account was solely in the husband's name. My husband's face went pale. His lawyer whispered urgently to him, but he didn't respond. Were these transfers approved by the wife? The judge asked. The accountant shook her head. There is no record of her authorization. The room felt like it was shrinking. The judge turned to my husband. Sir, do you wish to explain this account? He stood up slowly. Yes, he said, forcing a smile. That account was a backup for emergencies. Emergencies? The judge asked. Yes, he said quickly. Business emergencies. The judge nodded. Then you won't mind explaining why the money was used for personal expenses. My husband froze. The accountant spoke again. The funds were used for travel, gifts, and payments unrelated to business operations. A low gasp escaped someone sitting behind us. I sat very still. The judge's voice hardened. Why was this account not disclosed? My husband opened his mouth, closed it, then said, I forgot. The judge stared at him. People forget small things, the judge said calmly. They do not forget accounts that move money for years. My husband's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, my client is under stress. So was his wife, the judge interrupted. Yet she disclosed everything. That was the moment. That was when the room shifted. My husband wasn't the powerful man anymore. He was the man being questioned. After the hearing, my lawyer leaned toward me and whispered, This is unraveling fast. Outside the courtroom, reporters waited. My husband avoided them. He walked fast, head down. I heard someone ask, Sir, do you have undisclosed accounts? He didn't answer. Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A message from him. You think this makes you a hero? I didn't reply. Another message came minutes later. You're going to regret pushing me. I closed the app. Because for the first time, I wasn't afraid of his words. I was afraid of what he would do next. That night, my lawyer called. There's more, she said carefully. What? I asked. He tried to file an emergency motion, she explained. He wants to freeze your access to certain accounts. My heart raced. Can he do that? She paused. Not easily. But it tells me something. What? I asked. He's running out of time. I lay awake long after the call ended, staring at the ceiling. Because desperate people don't play fair. And my husband was no longer fighting to win. He was fighting to survive. The next move he made would not be smart. It would be reckless. And it would push him straight into the nightmare he created for himself. The emergency motion came through the next morning. My lawyer called before I even finished my coffee. He filed it late last night, she said. He's asking the court to freeze several accounts you have access to. I felt my stomach drop. On what grounds? He claims you're hiding assets, she replied. I let out a slow breath. Of course he did. When lies begin to fail, people invent bigger ones. What does this mean for me? I asked. It means he's desperate, she said calmly. And desperate people make mistakes. By noon, we were back in court. This hearing wasn't planned. The room was smaller, quieter. The judge looked irritated, like someone who had been dragged into nonsense. My husband sat across from me again, but he wouldn't look my way. The judge spoke first. Sir, he said to my husband, you are requesting an emergency freeze on your wife's accounts. Explain why. My husband stood up quickly. Your Honor, he said, I believe my wife is hiding funds. I believe she plans to move money before this divorce is finalized. I felt a strange calm wash over me. The judge turned to my lawyer. Response. My lawyer stood and handed over a thick file. Your Honor, she said, these are complete account records for every account my client controls. Updated as of this morning. The judge flipped through them slowly. Then he looked back at my husband. Do you have evidence, the judge asked, that contradicts this? My husband hesitated. Well, The judge raised a hand. Evidence, sir. Not suspicion. My husband swallowed hard. My client also notes, my lawyer added, that the husband recently attempted to move funds from an undisclosed account, one the court is already reviewing. That sentence hit like a hammer. My husband's head snapped up. What? He blurted out. The judge's eyes narrowed. You attempted to transfer money yesterday from an account you claimed to forget about? Silence. Everyone waited. My husband's lawyer whispered urgently, but it was too late. Yes, my husband said finally. But that money was mine. The judge leaned forward. You will not move funds from any account, disclosed or undisclosed, until this case concludes. He turned to my lawyer. The emergency motion is denied. Then he looked back at my husband. And sir, the judge added, your actions today raise serious concerns. My heart pounded. This was no longer just a divorce dispute. It was becoming something else. After the hearing, my husband tried to stop me in the hallway. You're enjoying this, he said bitterly. I looked at him calmly. I'm surviving it. You think the judge is on your side, he sneered. This can still flip. I shook my head. Only if the truth changes. His face twisted with anger. You were nothing before me, he snapped. I gave you everything. I felt something break loose inside me. No, I said quietly. I gave us everything. You just took credit. He opened his mouth to respond, but someone called his name. A court officer. Sir, the officer said, the court has additional questions about your financial disclosures. My husband's face went pale. He followed the officer back into a private room. I stood there, frozen. My lawyer touched my arm. This is getting serious, she whispered. That evening, the news reached me. The court had ordered a deeper investigation. Not just into the divorce, but into possible financial misconduct. I sat alone in my living room, lights off, phone in my hand. A message came in. From him. You've crossed a line. I stared at it for a long time. Then I typed back one sentence. You drew it. I put the phone down and leaned back. because now I could see it clearly. His threat in court, "I'll take everything from you," had done something unexpected. It had put him in the spotlight. And under that light, everything he tried to hide was starting to show. The nightmare he promised me was quietly becoming his own. After the emergency hearing, everything changed. Not outside. Inside him. I could feel it even when I wasn't near him. The way his messages stopped. The way his lawyer started speaking instead of him. The way his confidence disappeared like smoke. People who believe they are untouchable do not panic. People who are caught do. 2 days after the judge denied his motion, my lawyer called again. "They pulled bank records from 3 more institutions," she said. My heart skipped. And his name keeps showing up where it shouldn't. I sat down slowly. She explained it in simple words. Money had moved through places he never listed. Transfers were broken into small amounts. Some accounts were opened using addresses I didn't recognize. He was hiding, she said. And he was careful. Careful, but not careful enough. That afternoon, I was called back to court. This time, it wasn't just the divorce lawyers. There were new people in the room. Quiet. Serious. Watching everything. The judge entered and didn't waste time. "New findings have come to light," he said. "We will address them now." My husband looked thinner. His suit still fit, but it hung on him differently. His eyes were tired. He didn't smile once. The court officer handed documents to the judge. "These records show repeated transfers to accounts not disclosed by the husband," the judge said. "Some transfers occurred during the marriage. Others after the separation." My husband's lawyer stood quickly. "Your Honor, my client believed those accounts were irrelevant." The judge raised his hand. "Nothing is irrelevant when someone says, 'I'll take everything from you.'" The room went quiet. The judge looked directly at my husband. "You said that in this court," he continued. "Now we must understand what you meant." My husband swallowed hard. "I meant," he started. Then he stopped. Because for the first time, words wouldn't save him. The judge turned to me. "Ma'am," he asked, "were you aware of these accounts?" "No," I answered honestly. "Did you benefit from them?" "No." "Did you authorize them?" "Never." Each answer felt like a door closing behind me. The judge nodded and turned back to my husband. "These actions raise serious questions," he said. "Questions beyond property division." My husband's face went pale. "What does that mean?" he asked. "It means," the judge replied calmly, "this court is now concerned about intent." That word echoed in my head. Intent. After the hearing, my husband didn't follow me out. He was stopped. Asked to sit. Asked to explain. I stood in the hallway, my hands shaking, while my lawyer spoke softly to me. "This is the point where things split," she said. "Divorce on one side. Consequences on the other." That night, I received a message from him. Not angry. Not threatening. Begging. "We can still fix this. Please." I stared at the screen. 4 years, I was the fixer. The cleaner. The saver. The quiet support. I typed one sentence. "You should have fixed it when we were married." The reply came fast. "If this goes any further, you'll regret it." I turned off my phone. Because fear no longer lived where it used to. The next morning, my lawyer sent me an update. "They found something else," she wrote. "Something he tried to move yesterday." My heart pounded. "What?" I asked. Her reply came seconds later. "An account in a different name. But the trail leads back to him." I stared at the message. A different name? That meant only one thing. He hadn't just hidden money. He had hidden himself. And if the court followed that trail, what they found next would not just change the divorce. It would end it. The call from my lawyer came early the next morning. Her voice was calm, but serious. They found an account in another name, she said. Not yours. Not his. My heart started beating fast. Then whose name is it? That's the problem, she replied. The name doesn't belong to a real person. I sat down slowly. A fake name. That meant he didn't just hide money. He tried to disappear it. They followed the trail, my lawyer continued. The money moved from the business, through small transfers, into that account. Same pattern. Same timing. I closed my eyes. All those nights I stayed up working. All those times I trusted him. He was stealing while I was saving. By afternoon, we were back in court again. This time, the room felt colder. He was already there when I walked in. Sitting still. No phone. No smile. No confidence. The judge entered and went straight to the point. New evidence has been presented, the judge said. Evidence involving an account opened under a false identity. A quiet gasp spread through the room. My husband looked down at the table. The judge continued, this account received funds tied to marital assets. Funds you failed to disclose. My husband's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, my client denies creating any false identity. The judge nodded. Then he will have no issue explaining the access records. A clerk handed over papers. These records show logins from the same devices used to access your known accounts, the judge said. Same locations. Same timing. My husband's hands began to shake. That's not possible, he said weakly. The judge looked at him. Then explain it. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. The judge turned to me. Ma'am, he asked gently, were you aware of this account? No, I said. I had no idea. And did you ever authorize funds to be moved under another name? Never. The judge nodded slowly. That answer, he said, has been consistent throughout these proceedings. Then he turned back to my husband. Yours has not. The room was silent. The judge leaned back in his chair. This court is now concerned that marital assets were intentionally concealed, he said. That changes everything. My husband looked up sharply. This is just a divorce. The judge's voice hardened. No, he said. This is no longer just a divorce. Those words landed hard. After the hearing, my husband tried to approach me in the hallway. Please, he said quietly. Just listen to me. I stopped. What? I asked. You don't understand, he whispered. I did this to protect us. I looked at him. From who? I asked. He didn't answer. That silence told me more than any confession. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from him. If they dig any deeper, everything falls apart. I stared at the screen. Then I typed back one sentence. You should have thought of that before you said you'd take everything. I turned off my phone and sat in the dark. Because now I knew the truth. He didn't threaten me in court because he was strong. He did it because he was scared. And the deeper the court dug, the closer they were getting to the one thing he never planned for. Exposure. The next hearing would decide whether this stayed a divorce or turned into something much worse. After the judge said, "This is no longer just a divorce," the air in the room changed. People shifted in their seats. Papers stopped rustling. Even the lawyers sat still. My husband looked around like he was seeing the courtroom for the first time. Not as a stage, but as a trap. The judge gave a short order. The court will pause divorce proceedings until these financial concerns are addressed. Pause. That single word hit my husband harder than any ruling before. His lawyer leaned toward him and whispered fast. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the panic in his eyes. The confidence he walked in with weeks ago was gone. Outside the courtroom, he didn't come after me this time. He didn't threaten. He didn't shout. He disappeared. That scared me more than his anger ever did. That evening, my lawyer called again. He tried to submit a new explanation, she said. What kind of explanation? I asked. He claims the false name was a nickname used for privacy. I almost laughed. A nickname, I said. That's what he's going with, she replied. But it won't hold. Why? I asked. Because the identity has no records, no history, no legal existence. I leaned back in my chair. So he lied again. Yes, she said. And this time the court knows it. The next few days were heavy. Not dramatic. Not loud. Heavy. I couldn't sleep well. I kept thinking about all the years I trusted him. All the moments I believed his stories. How close I came to signing my life away without knowing it. Then, something unexpected happened. One of his former business partners contacted my lawyer. He wants to talk, she told me. About what? I asked. About money that went missing, she replied. Money he was told you approved. My chest tightened. We met in a small office 2 days later. The man looked tired. Older than I remembered. He always said you handled things, the man said. That you were the safe one. I shook my head slowly. I never approved hidden accounts. He nodded. I believe you now. He slid a folder across the table. Inside were emails. Messages from my husband saying things like, she knows. She's okay with it. I'll talk to her. None of them were from me. He used your name like a shield, the man said quietly. I felt sick. When I left the meeting, my lawyer looked at me. This helps, she said. A lot. That night, my phone buzzed again. A message from my husband. You're turning everyone against me. I stared at it for a long time. Then another message came. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't reply. Because for the first time, I truly did. The next court session was different. The judge asked questions directly. Slowly. Carefully. Questions my husband couldn't dodge. Why was this account opened? Why was it hidden? Why was your wife's name used without consent? Each question pushed him deeper into a corner. He tried to explain. He tried to deflect. He tried to blame stress. None of it worked. At one point, the judge looked at him and said something I will never forget. Your statements in this court have been inconsistent. Inconsistent. That was the polite word. What it really meant was, we don't believe you anymore. When the hearing ended, the judge made it clear. The court will continue investigating. Full cooperation is expected. Outside, my husband finally looked at me. Not angry. Afraid. You didn't have to do this, he said quietly. I looked at him for a long moment. You did this the moment you said you'd take everything, I replied. That night, my lawyer called one last time. There's a problem, she said. My heart jumped. What now? He tried to move money again, she said. After the court order. I sat up straight. Did he succeed? I asked. No, she replied. But the attempt was logged. I closed my eyes. That was it. He had crossed from desperate into reckless. And reckless people make one final mistake. The next hearing wasn't just about assets anymore. It was about consequences. And whatever happened next would change his life forever. The morning of the next hearing felt heavier than all the others combined. I woke up before dawn, my chest tight, my mind already racing. This time, I didn't feel scared. I felt alert, like someone standing at the edge of a storm, knowing it was about to break. My phone buzzed. A message from my lawyer. Today is different. Stay calm. Listen carefully. That was all she wrote. When I arrived at court, I noticed something immediately. More people. Not just lawyers and clerks. There were serious faces I didn't recognize. People who didn't whisper. People who didn't rush. People who watched. My husband arrived late. That alone told me everything. He looked worn down. His suit was still expensive, but it didn't hide the dark circles under his eyes or the way his hands shook as he sat down. He didn't look at me. He stared straight ahead like if he didn't move. Maybe none of this was real. The judge entered, and the room stood. When we sat, the judge didn't open with the divorce. He opened with something else. Before we proceed, the judge said slowly, there are matters related to financial conduct that must be addressed. My husband stiffened. The judge continued, since the last hearing, this court has received evidence of attempted transfers made after a direct court warning. My heart pounded. My husband's lawyer stood quickly. Your Honor, my client maintains that. The judge raised a hand. Your client was explicitly told not to move funds. Silence. A court officer stepped forward and handed documents to the judge. These logs show attempted access to restricted accounts, the judge said. The attempts occurred late at night, from the same device used in previous unauthorized transfers. My husband's face drained of color. That's impossible, he said weakly. The judge looked directly at him. Then explain it. He opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. I was just checking balances, he said. The judge didn't blink. On accounts you were ordered not to access. My husband's lawyer put a hand on his arm. Too late. The judge turned to the clerk. Please note this. Something about the way he said it made my stomach tighten. This wasn't just being recorded. This was being remembered. Then something happened I didn't expect. The judge called a new witness. A man I had never seen before stood up from the side of the room. He looked nervous but determined. State your role, the judge said. I was an accountant for one of the businesses, the man replied. I left after I noticed irregular activity. Irregular activity. The man continued, his voice shaking at first, then growing stronger. There were instructions to move money in small amounts. Always late. Always quiet. And I was told never to speak to the wife. The room went still. The judge leaned forward. Who gave those instructions? The man swallowed. The husband. My heart dropped, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. My husband shook his head violently. He's lying. The judge didn't even look at him. Why were you told not to speak to the wife? The judge asked the witness. Because, the man said softly. She asked questions. I felt my throat tighten. Yes. I always asked questions. That was why I was dangerous. The judge thanked the witness and dismissed him. Then he turned back to my husband. Earlier in these proceedings, the judge said, you stated that your wife had full knowledge and approval of your financial decisions. My husband nodded weakly. The judge continued, yet multiple witnesses and records suggest deliberate efforts to keep her uninformed. The judge paused. That contradiction matters. My husband finally looked at me. Not with anger. With panic. As if he was just realizing something terrible. He never needed to take everything from me. He needed me to stay silent. The judge spoke again. This court will now consider whether continued misrepresentation has occurred. Those words felt heavy. Because misrepresentation wasn't just a mistake. It was a pattern. After a short recess, my lawyer leaned close to me. This is the turning point, she whispered. He's running out of explanations. Across the room, my husband was arguing quietly with his lawyer, his face red, his movements sharp. He looked trapped. And desperate people do desperate things. When court resumed, the judge announced something that made the entire room shift. Based on the evidence presented, he said, this court will refer certain findings for further review. Further review. That wasn't divorce language. That was something else. My husband stood up suddenly. "This is unfair," he shouted. She knew what she was doing. The judge's voice cut through the room like ice. "You will sit down," he said. "This outburst does not help you." My husband sank back into his chair. I sat perfectly still. Because I knew. This wasn't over yet. But it was no longer in his control. As we left the courtroom, he finally spoke to me. "You wanted this," he said, his voice low and shaking. I looked at him calmly. "No," I replied. "You did. The moment you said you'd take everything." He stared at me, his mouth open, but no words came out. That night, my lawyer called. "They've asked for more records," she said. "Things you've never even seen." I closed my eyes. Because now I understood the truth. The divorce was no longer his nightmare because he might lose money. It was his nightmare because the truth he buried for years had started speaking. And it wasn't done yet. The final hearing arrives on a quiet morning. No reporters this time. No whispers in the hallway. Just tension hanging in the air like a storm that has already decided where it will strike. I sit at my table, hands folded, breathing slowly. Across the room, my husband looks nothing like the man who once stood tall and said, "I'll take everything from you." His shoulders are slumped. His eyes are tired. His confidence is gone. The judge enters and gets straight to the point. Over the course of these proceedings, the judge says, "This court has seen repeated attempts to conceal assets, misrepresent facts, and ignore direct warnings." My heart pounds, but I don't move. "This court does not reward threats," the judge continues. "And it does not protect deception." My husband's lawyer stands, but the judge raises a hand. "No," the judge says. "I've heard enough." The judge turns to me. "Ma'am," he asks, "did you ever agree to give up everything?" "No," I answer clearly. "I agreed to a marriage. Not to be erased." The judge nods. Then he turns to my husband. "You said in this courtroom that you would take everything from her," the judge says. "What you failed to understand is that the court looks at facts, not intimidation." The room is silent. "The evidence shows," the judge continues, "that the wife contributed significantly, was kept uninformed of key actions, and acted in good faith throughout this process." My husband grips the table. "Meanwhile," the judge adds, "the husband acted alone, hid accounts, attempted unauthorized transfers, and continued misconduct even after court warnings." The judge pauses. "This court finds that the husband's actions directly caused the collapse of his own position." My breath catches. Then the words come. "The wife will retain her share of all disclosed marital assets," the judge says. "The undisclosed accounts are awarded to the court for further action. And all claims against the wife related to concealment are dismissed." Dismissed. The word feels like sunlight after a long winter. My husband slumps back in his chair. The judge isn't finished. "Additionally," he says, "this court refers certain findings for further investigation." That's when it hits him. This didn't end with divorce papers. This followed him beyond the courtroom. The gavel comes down. It's over. Outside, I walk slowly, like I'm learning how to move again. My lawyer smiles. "You're free." I nod, but the truth is deeper than that. I'm not just free from him. I'm free from fear. That night, I sit alone in my home. The house is quiet, but it doesn't feel empty. It feels honest. I think about his words in court. "I'll take everything from you." He thought power came from threats. He thought silence meant weakness. He thought I would fold. But here's the truth. I didn't take anything from him. I didn't destroy him. I didn't plan revenge. I simply stopped protecting his lies. And when I did, the truth took everything back. Before you go, let me say this to you. If someone has ever tried to scare you into silence, if someone told you they would leave you with nothing, if someone used fear as power, remember this. Threats only work when the truth stays quiet. If this story moved you, subscribe for more emotional and powerful stories like this. Like this video so others can find it. And comment below. Tell us where you're watching from and what part of this story stayed with you the most. Your voice matters. And sometimes, the moment someone says, "I'll take everything from you," is the moment they lose everything instead.